I'm here at South Lodge Hotel Kitchen with Chef Jordon Powell. Now, Jordon is chef de partie at The Pass. Now, The Pass is one of several restaurants at South Lodge. There's also the Camellia, and then there's Botanica as well up at the spa. The Pass is a really special place, actually, and as the name says, it's right next to the kitchen. Diners get quite involved and see what's going on. So what are you going to be cooking for us today?
So today what we've got is a grilled piece of sea trout. We're going to be cooking that over some Japanese coals on the Binchotan grill, which you'll be able to see a bit later. What we're going to serve that with is a gem lettuce velouté sauce, so something a little bit different. And then what we have is a little fennel grape salad to accompany, and then a few little almonds on there as well. It's a very simple fish dish, really.
Sounds absolutely delicious, though. So what's the first thing
first thing to do, what we do is make sure all the preparation's done before we do any fish cookery. We don't want to cook the fish and then be late on anything, so ideally what I'm going to do is just get the sauce made, get that to put to the side. We'll get the salad sort of ready to go, and then we'll get onto the fish cookery, really.
Okay.
So gem lettuce velouté. So you need a few gem lettuces to do this because it wilts down when you cook it, but it's a very easy sort of sauce to make.
I've never heard of a gem lettuce velouté. It sounds very light and fresh.
No, when I started in The Pass, it was the first time I ever heard of it. But yeah, it's lovely. You've got to work quite quick with it when you make it, just because the colour you can lose quite quickly on there. So you want to sort of use the really sort of bright leaves, the outer leaves, sort of the green bits you don't really want to use. So what we've got is just the chiffonade of lettuce. So you can chop it just as long as it's quite fine and small, really. And then what we're going to do is heat up a pan, a little bit of olive oil. This is just helping it so it doesn't catch on the bottom of the pan. So you're going to want to get the pan quite hot. You want this process to be very, very quick. So you want to get it in very hot pan quickly, keep it moving so it doesn't stick to the bottom. You don't really want too much colour to it. Then we're going to finish that with a touch of Fennel sherry and then a touch of vermouth. So it's nice sort of alcohols to use with any fish dish. They're light, and then got a really big body and flavour to them. You don't want to use white wine because it's a bit too tart. And then of course red wine it's not a meatier fish that you want to do, like a harsh red wine sauce. So, and then we're going to finish it with a bit of butter to make it quite luxurious and shiny. And then we'll move on to the fennel salad. Fennel salad's really easy. It's just sort of sliced fennel, a few grapes, and then we dress that to order. And it comes on. So yeah, you want to heat up the olive oil. Okay, so gem lettuce goes in. It will wilt down quite a bit. So we'll instantly start cooking. Touch of oil again. You're going to do a tiny little bit of salt at this point just to start getting that the moisture out of the lettuce. Whenever you want to stretch something down, incorporating salt does help remove the moisture, stopping it from actually burning or catching. So lettuce straight in.
I'm intrigued. I've got lots of lettuces in my fridge at the moment.
Okay, so at this point, we've got that cooking liquor in there as well. And then what you want to do is start blitzing it up. So it all happens quite quick. So you've got this really green, so when you see it in the pan, it looks all quite white and yellow. But then when you blitz it, you get this this really green sauce. So basically what we want to do now is start incorporating some butter. So the butter's going to give this sauce a bit of body as well.
And give it that glossy texture.
Yeah, it's going to give it the glossy texture. When you have a sauce, you want it to sort of coat your palate quite nicely. You don't want it to be sticky, but you do want it to have a little bit more of a luxurious feel to it. So that butter gives you that. It takes on seasoning really well. So you don't want to spend like hours blitzing this or anything like that. You're going to start losing colour straight away. Once we've blitzed that in, we're going to have to taste it. But what we have here is the green sauce. We've got the butter going through that now. So basically what we want to do now is quickly taste this. Make sure we've got the seasoning levels right. You don't want to add any acidity to it at this time because you're going to that will change the colour in the sauce, and it could make it quite bitter as well. The longer it stays in there, so we want to give it a taste. So what we've got is our salt. So in the past we tend to use kosher salt. Kosher salt, so it's a lot more natural, a lot less refined than table salt. You can get it in most sort of good supermarkets, a small box. It's quite nice to use. It's a little bit better, and obviously it is a little bit better for you. it's as good as salt can actually be for you. Perfect, so that's that little bit of salt added. Then what you want to do is grab a sieve, then you want to get a little bit of ice or really cold water. Ice works the best. Put another bowl on top of that, and then that will create a really cold bowl that we can pass this into.
Okay.
So you want to just get sort of a sieve, wherever you've got at home. You basically want to get any chunks out. The reason for the ice bath is to keep the colour there. It's going to start losing a lot of colour. It's going to go brown if you don't have the ice bath.
It makes so much difference. It really does. It
does
brings
indeed,
it all together. And
So you've got this really nice sort of delicate sauce. You don't want it too thick. You also don't want it too thin. So we'll plate up the dish, and that'll be the last thing to hit the plate as well. Then you just leave that over ice until it starts to cool down, basically. I'm going to start preparing the fennel. You won't need the whole fennel. Like this will do a lot of portions. I'll cut the fennel down the middle, scarred one. In fennel, you've got this sort of little root here. Not very nice to eat when it's raw if it's not cooked. So you just want to take that out. You almost create a V shape just to take out that root. If you're cooking the fennel, usually that's fine to be there.
such a fantastic aroma comes off that, isn't it? It's really sort of aniseedy and fresh.
It all starts blending together. So the Norley Pratt used in the sauce is sort of aromatic and aniseedy as well. So that's going to be a back note in the sauce, and then also you're going to have that fennel on there, which is a lot harsher aniseed. So everything starts to balance out. Everything starts to marry up. So with the fennel, you can either chop it like very finely. It's very up to interpretation how you do this. We just use a mandolin. We use the fennel we leave the fennel pretty natural. And then you want to slice it. So you get these really thin strands. So you want to keep it quite thin. So some people have these at home, some people don't. You can just slice it as thin as you can with a knife. You just don't want it to be too thick or crunchy. You want it to be quite delicate, as this is a delicate fish dish. So just a little bit of sliced fennel. So as you can see, you don't need a lot. What we have here is just little green grapes. You could use red grapes, doesn't make too much of a difference. It just goes really nicely with the fennel. So you want to cut it straight down the middle in quarters. Little quarters of the grapes. You just want a few in there. I'll say for one person, you'd probably want 2-3 grapes cut into quarters. You don't need too many. Adds a little freshness to it.
I mean, fish and grapes is quite classic.
It's classic, yeah. You have your classic sole Veronique, which is your sole done with, it's a roux based sauce, and then you have these peeled grapes served chilled on the plate. So it's very, very classic. So there, I don't want to dress this right now. I want to dress this once the fish is actually cooked. So this will just go to one side like that. So we've got the sauce cooling down. We have our grapes and fennel. What I want to show you is the almonds on this dish. So this adds a really nice little bit of texture. So obviously fish and nuts go really nicely together. You want to keep it quite delicate, so I've got flaked almonds. So I have flaked almonds here. They're unroasted at this point. So what I want to do is roast them down in butter. Chefs like butter. So we want to roast that down. Also gives them really nice golden brownness. Also, you don't want it to, they almost dry out in the oven sometimes when you roast them in the oven. Unless you go really low temperature and slow. Some people don't really have time for that. So it's almost like where you make croutons in a pan, foaming butter, you add your almonds, and then we're going to just keep cooking those until they're brown. And we're going to put them onto a little bit of cloth just to absorb that. I'll briefly talk about the fish. So we've got a fillet of sea trout.
Could you just use a salmon or an ordinary rainbow trout or something?
Yeah, a nice piece of salmon or rainbow trout would work perfectly. Even this gem lettuce sauce, it's not aggressive. It's not specific to any fish. So you could still serve it with a white fish as well. With a sort of a white fish if you had, I'd be partial to sort of a beurre blanc sauce, sort of a white-based sauce with maybe some chopped herbs and seaweed. Is another dish we do. But this is a fantastic sauce with the trout. As well, so the almonds are almost there. I'm just sort of like keeping them. You don't want to get them too hot; they burn. The dish we're also going to finish. We've got this tiny little sort of chili powder. So it's called a yuzu sashimi pepper. So basically, it's a chili powder infused with the citrus yuzu. So yuzu is a type of citrus fruit, a Japanese citrus fruit. So some people are aware of it, some don't know of it. So it's a nice little flavour to add to the dish. Adds a little bit of citrus. So there's flaked almonds just on there like that. Just to drain on the cloth, so they're really nicely toasted. They've got that butteriness from that beurre noisette, that freshness. It's going to add texture to this dish as well. That's what we're trying to work on. You always want to work on how you get texture onto the dish and incorporate that. Okay, so the almonds are prepared. We have the sauce cooling down. You just want to keep an eye on that sauce, making sure you're still regulating it, making sure it's cold. And then you have your salad. So what we're going to move on is sort of the fish cookery. We're going to show you a technique which is skewering the fish and then cooking it over a Binchotan grill. Binchotan grill is a Japanese style grill or a yakitori grill. So that's imported from Japan. So we've had it imported to have in the kitchen. And then you cook on these charcoal coals from Japan as well. So they have a real sort of specific flavour to them that you sort of get from cooking over sort of normal charcoal or cooking over wood. It's really really interesting flavour. But obviously, if you're cooking this at home, you can definitely pan fry this. So if you want to cook it more on the skin sides and then stand as you sort of flip it and then straight out of the pan.
Okay.
It's a lovely way of cooking the fish. You can still bake the fish if you'd like. You can grill the fish. Any cookery technique on this dish will work.
So how many minutes? If you a piece of fish that size, if you were popping it in a pan.
If you were popping that in a pan, you'd want it sort of on a medium to high heat with oil. You'd want it to. One thing is you'll start to notice it change colour.
Yes.
This is sort of a real bright red orange colour. It will start to go sort of a milkier sort of white pink colour. But sort of in a pan, you'd sort of want to sort of 6-7 minutes maybe. Slowly bring it up. Then you flip it 1 more minute and then out. Also, key with cooking your fish is you do not cook it from fridge cold. So this has been out of the fridge for sort of about half an hour. You want to pull the fish out from half an hour because if you're going to cook a fish with that aggressive heat on the outside and it's fridge cold in the middle, it's going to start to overcook on the outside before it even starts to cook in the middle.
Yeah, very good tip.
So yeah, so it's a great tip for any meat cookery as well, any fish cookery. Yeah. Always never cook straight from the fridge because it will just end in tears. You want to keep that. You want to have that cuisson through the meat perfect. Indeed. So on these, so we have these skewers. They're quite really long, pointy, sharp skewers, which you can skewer the meat with. So we've done sort of big cuts of meat on there. You can do big bits of fish. You can do small little like quails and stuff on here. You want to get your trout and then place one of the skewers through the skin, just above the skin, through the meat, and then it will just pop out the other side. And this is so you have control with moving it over the grill. So yeah, this is a cooking technique we use a lot in the past. We use it a lot on, we had like a Wagyu beef that we cook on the grill. We had quails that we finish over the grill. Nice. Even vegetables, like even our vegetarian dishes and also vegetables that go on our meat dishes and fish dishes, we finish over the coals as well. Adds a real, it's an underlying flavour that goes through a lot of our cooking in the past.
And there's sort of quite a smoky flavour, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed as well. Yeah, you get a lot of smoky flavour. You can control it quite well. You can have it quite smoky. You can have it just cooked and fry, you can actually cook it over the top without it being too harsh. And then also you can smoke it heavily, so you get a real intense smoke flavour. And also we sort of add you can add wood to the coals. You can add juniper branches, which we do a lot. So then that starts to burn and it adds lots of flavour. So it's a fantastic way of doing it. Awesome. So now we've got the fish skewered and it's prepared. What we're going to do is we're going to take it over to the barbecue and then I'll show you what to do next.
Lovely.
Thank you. So now here is our Binchotan grill. I have my trout here. So the Binchotan grill is, I like this sort of about an hour before you need to cook, sort of maybe 45 minutes to get the coals ready. So it's an incredibly hot heat from these coals. So every day is different when you cook on here. You have to be sort of quite adaptive to the way you cook. So what you want to do, I arrange my coals, and what you want to do is, so the skewered fish, I want to go skin side down, just like you would if you were cooking it in a pan, or if you were baking it in the oven, sort of skin side down works perfectly well. And then what that's going to do, the heat's going to travel up, it's going to start ideally rendering the fat from the trout, it's going to crisp up the skin slightly as well. And we want to cook most of the fish on this side. Okay, so it's all about sort of, I have to maintain this, keep an eye on this fish. You can start to hear the actual skin. It's starting to sort of pop and crackle. You can hear the fat touching the coals. That's starting to sound really, really good. You don't want the heat to be too aggressive because you're going to start overcooking the fish really, really, really quickly. So same the way you'd cook in a pan, the heat's traveling from the bottom. You want to do that sort of maybe for about 5-6 minutes, and then you want to flip the fish just to finish it on the flesh side. Not too aggressive on there because it will overcook really quickly as there's no skin to protect the fish. As you can see, every time the fat drops off, you've got smoke coming up from the coals. It's a really great flavour. Sort of circulate the heat. We have this little bit of kit. It's like a fan that comes with it. So you just sort of just incorporate air to the coals, feeding it, keeping it quite hot as well. As soon as you shut off the air, the coals start to go a lot cooler. So then you don't get that really intense temperature that we sort of want. And as you can see, it's sort of starting to go really, really crispy. And you can sort of see the fat starting to render out as well. It's exactly what we want. Really dry skin. So this specific piece of fish has been brined slightly. So a brine is a salt and water mixture that we place the fish in. We only leave it in there for about sort of no longer than half an hour, depending on the fish. If the fish comes in quite firm, we don't need to brine it. If it comes in quite soft, the brining helps firm up the fish and also incorporate seasoning as well. So if you're at home and you didn't want to make the brine, you can do a dry cure, which is sort of equal quantities table salt and sugar, and then you roll the fish in that, and then you leave that sort of for about sort of 20 minutes, and then you wash it off with cold water, and then that is it. And then even if you didn't want to go that far, you just season the fish before you cook it in the pan. But the brine gives it a consistent seasoning and also firms the fish up, so it will give it a really nice mouthfeel when you eat the dish. So got to keep rotating my coals. If it gets too hot, I will burn the skin before it actually cooks the fish itself. So you're going to get great flavour from this fat dripping onto the coals, almost slightly smoking the fish. Okay, so now we've sort of had the fish on here for a few minutes now. We're starting to get that real sort of glisten of fat to the fish. You can see where it's rendering out between the flakes of the fish, and it's starting to have that really nice glaze to it. And then it's starting to change colour slightly. It's starting to go that sort of lighter pink colour. So that shows you signs of the fish is cooking really nicely. You don't want any of the white sort of to come out the sides of the fish, because that means the fat has set and it's starting to leach out the sides, meaning the fish is sort of gone overcooked. So we'll give it sort of like another minute on the skin side, and then what you want to do is just a real quick flash on the flesh side. Okay, so the skin's really nice and crisp now. What I'm going to do is give it one last bit of heat. I'm going to turn it over, finish it on the flesh side, and then what you want to do with when you're any sort of fish cookery, you want to take it off just before it's sort of cooked fully all the way through, as fish will retain its heat from this grill because it's very, very hot, and it will carry on cooking the fish through while you plate. So by the time you come to eat it, the fish is perfectly cooked. If you remove the fish from the pan when it's perfectly cooked, depending on how quick you plate, it will be overcooked by the time you actually come to serve it. So which will be disappointing once you put all that effort in. So as you can see, the skin's really nice and crisp now. You can see that all the fat's rendered out. So now what I want to do is flip it over. I want to get it quite a high, hot heat. Okay, so now we've got the crispy skin. Just finished it on that flesh side. You can see the fat rendering out of that really nicely. There's no proteins leaching out of the side, which is a really good sign. So last little bit of heat. Okay, so now I've finished it on the flesh side. The fish is looking really good now. So now we just want that residual heat to finish cooking off that fish. So we'll take it off, and then I'll take it and we'll go and plate. Okay, so now here we are. We've got our trout fish. The trout is just finished cooking. It's still on the skewers, so what you want to do first before we even start plating is take off the skewers. If you've pan roasted, you obviously don't need to worry. With this, you don't want to pull them straight out. You want to almost turn the skewer slightly so it dislodges from the fish, and then you can pull it out really slowly. If you're like in a busy service, if you pull it out, you can risk pulling all the flakes apart. So especially, even if it's pan fried, even if it's baked, be really gentle with the fish once it's cooked, because it doesn't have that sort of integrity to it anymore, and it's going to start flaking away. Okay, so all the skewers are out. The fish has just been resting. Really important to rest your fish slightly as well. It doesn't need as long as meat, it still just needs a couple of minutes from when it's come out of a pan before you serve. Okay, so what we have here, this is our salad we prepared earlier. So this is the fennel and the grapes. We have a specific sort of vinegar we use. We use a mandarin vinegar, so it's quite citrusy. It's quite delicate as well. You can also use sort of like a white wine vinegars, like a Chardonnay vinegar, if you wanted. So whichever vinegar you want, or you could even use lemon juice if you don't have any vinegars. You just want a touch of that going in there. But we use this because it gives it that real citrusy feel. Like I said earlier, with the chili powder, we've got a little bit of yuzu going through that as well. So that's it. We've got a little Verdamanda olive oil. Verdamanda olive oil is a cold pressed olive oil, which we use for specifically dressing. So yeah, it's a really, really delicate oil. And then we have here is just a little bit of salt. And you dress that slightly as well. Okay, so that just gets dressed lightly. We're just going to lightly warm up our velouté that we made earlier. So this is now completely cold. So there's no loss of colour now to this velouté. So what you want to do now is a small pan. Pour some in. That won't take long to heat up. You don't want it to boil, because then you're going to start cooking out the colour like we said at the start when you blitz it. So you just really want to bring it up just before it starts to boil and then serve straight away. Okay, so what you want to do is, while that's warming up, we can start plating the initial dish, because the sauce will be the last thing that goes on the plate. So first I usually use the salad. What we have here is the fennel. So the fennel's just been dressed, as we said, just in a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of salt. Whatever you dress it with, it's as long as you're using sort of oil, citrus and salt, you can change it up. You can use vinegar, you could use lemon juice, lime juice, grapefruit. Depends what fish you want, and depends what flavour profile you want on the dish. So now this is starting to warm up. Just keep it on a low temperature. So fennel adds a really great little bit of height to this dish as well. Got the fresh grapes in there. Okay, so again, like I said, you just got to be really gentle when moving the fish. So you just want to go straight underneath it, move it straight to the plate. Know exactly where you want to put it on the plate. And then it goes straight on. What we have also is our almonds. So these are the almonds that we put on the cloth earlier. Now they've sort of dried out, so they're really nicely toasted. So you can sort of have them coming off the fish slightly. It's going to add lots of texture to that dish. So there go the almonds. We have the warm sauce. This is the sashimi pepper I said earlier. Touch of yuzu going through it. It's not spicy. It's not really spicy. It's more of a sweet, mild spice to it. That just goes over the sort of fennel salads, a bit over the fish. So it's a great little ingredient we used in the past. Just gives that sort of undertone warmth, and also adds to that citrusiness that we're trying to add to the dish as well. And then we have the warm. As you can see, it's not boiled. I haven't boiled it too high. Literally just bring it up so it starts to steam. So you know that's sort of about 80, 90 degrees. Anything more than that, you're going to start cooking out the flavour. So that is the dish, and then we just pour the sauce in one place underneath, and that's it. So that's probably about sort of 4 or 5 tablespoons on there, and then you can always have more if you're cooking it at home as well. So, and then that's the finished dish really.
So that's sea trout with fennel and grapes, almonds with a lovely little gem, velouté. That's fantastic. It looks superb. And now we're going to go over to Luke at the Horsham cellar, who's going to select a delicious wine to serve with this dish.
To pair with South Lodge's smoky sea trout dish with the fennel, the grapes, the almonds, I have selected this beautiful white wine from Argentina. It's made from the Torrontés grape. Now the Torrontés grape is Argentina's most widely planted white wine, but you still don't see it very often here in the UK. And it's a really interesting, very aromatic, sometimes floral, sometimes too floral grape. But when it's in the right hands, it's an incredible white wine, which is crisp and aromatic, yet balanced and very food friendly. This is made by the Crios Torrontés here, is made by Susana Balbo, who's known in Argentina as the Queen of Torrontés. She's got a fantastic blending skill, and in fact she does blend this wine with a portion of fruit from Mendoza and a portion of fruit from the high altitude Salta vineyards. So she gets all the floral character from Salta and the sort of crisp citrusy balance from the Mendoza fruit. It's quite complex. It matches all the elements of that dish. The smokiness of the sea trout will carry the grapey floral characters of the Torrontés perfectly. The grapes themselves in the dish, the Torrontés grape, a bit like Muscat, tastes one of the only white wine grapes that tastes like table grapes, so that will work very well. The fennel as well. It's the balance between aromas, well, the aromatic character, the floral character, and the crisp citrusiness that will match every element of that dish perfectly. And it's available right here at the Horsham cellar. It's imported by a company based in Sussex, in Mayfield. It's available $14.49. Enjoy.